American Comedy Network. You must know that.
No. One of my song "Keep in Your Pants, Jim Baker" is currently appearing on an album without my permission in New York City. Thank you very much.
2 years ago, we did a thing called the James Brown car alarm, and I went to the movies and saw Blind Date just shit when I saw Rick Dees doing it all of a sudden. And that does tend to happen. But it came through on the American Comedy Network. What the comedy networks do sometime, and it's not really their fault, it's the methodology they use. What they will do is they'll give you $25 or credit thereof to send them a bit. Well, many people that take the bits, they don't write, and so they may hear something, and it occurs to them 2 days later, hey, I've got this idea about a James Brown car alarm or whatever, and they send it in. And as a result, you hear your bit coming right back at you again.
But there's creative memory.
Yeah, I think it's it.
But there is a lot of stuff out there. But like I said before, I think to me a lot of those comedy bits work a lot better if you leave the mics open. If you have someone with a great laugh, the first time you play the bit for them, and like my partner and I always surprise each other. I never tell him what I'm going to do. The first time he heard Swish Cola, he had no idea that I'd gone to the studio and taped it. That's where you get a great laugh. And so it's important, at least in my mind, to have the laughter there. So tape it the first time you do a bit on the air. And then the next time you play the bit, play it with the laughs. Play the original bit over again.
Let me just go another direction with the same question. And I want to direct it at Dick Biondi, because Dick comes from the golden age of rock and roll. And I remember hearing Dan Ingram one time. He told me, he said, you know, one of the biggest challenges I had was trying to get a laugh and do my personality instead of doing it in a minute or a minute and a half bit, to do it in 10 or 12 seconds. And Dick, do you ever use any kind of pre-recorded bits, or what is your show prep? How do you get in and do your personality differently?
I'm sort of like a faucet. You open it up and whatever comes out, comes out. I don't use pre-recorded. I just let it hang out. But what you said about Dan Ingram is true, and I just try to relate to the audience, relate to what's happening, and hope that try not to be so much funny as to just say what you feel at the moment. And sometimes it's funny, like the two skeletons, or maybe it isn't, but that's what happens at the moment.
Another question.
Yes, Myron Rainey, WBIW, Bedford, Indiana. I'll ask this directly to Garish and indirectly to the rest of the panel. And I know, Gary, you and Dr. Wolf do a thing every afternoon. Listen quite a bit. And occasionally I hear you talking over spots out of a bit, or...
He said leave your microphone on. So we leave our...
Well, I understand that, but that's why I'm asking you directly and indirectly to the rest of you. Do you pull the reins back and say, hey, wait a second, we've got an obligation to those that help our paycheck?
Sure we do. I don't really... I try not to. I wouldn't want to take away from the commercial, so to speak. I don't really... I wouldn't blast the commercial with it being on the air at the time. We do at times talk behind the commercials or talk to the commercial. There was a Cincinnati Gas and Electric commercial. The guys would say, let's pause a minute now and think about what we do for you. So we just stopped the damn thing. Yeah. And we'd sit there and wait and wait. Maybe we'll play a couple of commercials while we're waiting. You know, and then we play a couple of commercials, and then 2 hours later play the end of it. They made us quit doing it, but I thought he called attention to CG&E. Yeah, basically.
By the way, I'm still waiting for my Ranger Bob material.
Okay.
I'm Jack Evans, WBHP in Huntsville, Alabama, and about 6-7 years ago I had the opportunity to work for Gary, and it made me quickly decide I didn't want to be a morning man but be a program director. So thank you for that, Gary. I
became an afternoon man after that, too.
What the hell?
Morning comes
Question
early.
for Andy and Pat, if you would, and again for Tom, if they can give me the different feelings as teams, getting off the air with no personal appearances that particular day, or no attorneys to meet with that morning when you get off the air, if you would. What is a typical day? When does it end? When do you separate and go your way? And thank you.
We don't ever separate. We live together. I'm in love with his wife, and his two children look amazingly a lot like Tom down in the end down here. I don't know. By the way, Tom won the Sam Kinison look-alike contest about an hour before we started this. We wanted you to know that. And take him to the food today, Tom. It's not in that banquet room, I'll tell you that. We get off the air at 9 o'clock, unless we're doing something really weird. We work at different... We're 5:30 to 9. Most morning shows run till 10 o'clock. We get done at 9 because we work so damn hard to give us an hour extra to debrief ourselves before we meet with the general manager. Then it's into production. Both of us do a lot of different commercials. We've been in the market long enough that we get a lot of that stuff, but it's like everybody else in radio. You do that part of it. If there is a personal appearance, it's usually either on a client thing with a salesperson, because The salespeople get 15% of what they sell, and we get whatever crumbs are left over. So we go along to kind of sell the station. After that, if it's a paid personal appearance, we're all smiles and we clean up real good. If it's one that we're going to do as a public service, like the Girl Scout Cookie Castle down at one of your civic centers, it's 2 hours with a station sweatshirt and tennis shoes, and let's get the hell out at 2 o'clock so we can go home and take a nap. It just depends. It's a day-to-day change, and I guess that's what keeps it fresh. The fact that every day is something different. We start at the alarms go off in the Witt and Martin house about 3:30 in the morning. We do really not live together, honest to gosh, but we're in the station early, and we do a lot of stuff from all the morning newspapers we can grab. We have the unusual situation where we're located close enough to Milwaukee and Chicago that while we don't have to worry about Dick Biondi stealing our audience, we do have to worry about the newspapers and the morning shows and everything else that comes into the market. So we have to be as topical, we feel at any rate, as we can be, and so we do a lot of pre-stuff. The afternoon bits, I don't know. At my house you hear a lot of...
It really all depends, too, what bits we have on the air, because, you know, some of them get old and you drop them. Case in point, we had a bit where we decided we'd call heaven and talk to the dead. We have 60 character voices we use in our show, and about 30, 40 of them are dead. I mean, I'm talking about Paul Lynde, Truman Capote, all these. So we would call heaven. It started being we'd talk to Elvis all the time and things like that. All these bits were canned and recorded. That took a lot of time because we had to write them. Then we were talking about a bit we never got up, doing Heavenly Squares with the Dead. We never did that. We got to talk about that. The point is, it depends what we have on the air that we're using for bits. Now, a lot of the bits that we feel are really good are played early in the morning. They're turned around and recycled and then played later on in our morning show again to a whole new audience.
Do you critique each other? Do you ever sit down after and listen to...
That's one reason that we don't leave the microphone on, because we go at each other pretty good, yes.
Okay. Tom, if you would follow.
My typical day starts out with an hour of vigorous sex. I'm alone. My show is from about 6 to 10:30. I never am there before about 6:10. Gerry just made a point that justifies what I do. I always work with the previous day's material, and I didn't realize why until he mentioned it. It's a very good point. A lot of the really topical stuff hasn't hit yet, and if you do stuff that's right on target of a particular moment, you must set it up. I'm the king of setups. Everyone always, I set things up for so long, usually it's often to the point of boring people, but you have to set them up for the jokes. In any event, my typical day is after I get off the air, I just hang around the station and try to write stuff. I do a lot of stuff in studios, a lot of 24-track material. I work with other writers and musicians and stuff. But I never get there early and do no show prep. I do occasional carded bits, but most of it's live. And that's it.
Another question?
I'm Dave Nicholson, and I'm program director of KCUB and Kim FM in Tucson, and I guess I'll direct this to Gerry or anybody else on the staff. I consider a big part of my duties being morning show producer for both radio stations. Do you, Gerry, do you have a producer for your show, and or does anybody on the panel? And do you appreciate that type of help and that type of feedback?
Yeah, I've got a lady that does nothing but produces the show. You mean lining up guests and making sure everything's... And
actually sitting down at the end of the day and saying, well, Gerry, maybe that one didn't work.
No.
Or maybe we should...
No.
You run the board?
Yeah, I run my own board, but you know what? Occasionally, somebody the team will all sit down and talk about it, but I don't have anybody. You mean like a producer, program director?
Right.
No. I think if you're going to do a high-profile show, though, you better have somebody in the studio to help you. I mean, I need that, particularly if you run your own board. But I need somebody just to get all the stuff ready, And,
well, now you're one of the top talents in the nation. If you're in a medium market where you really don't have the bucks for that kind of a talent, would you suggest that programmers do that they sit and work particularly with the morning shows?
I'm not sure I understand your question. You mean the program director should go in and work with the talent? You mean? Oh, you mean be there?
Well, I mean, in particular,
oh, God,
work
please
with
don't put a program director in the room with the talent, man. That's
all right. Thanks.
Please.
Gina Preston from WXTU in Philadelphia. How about the afternoons when you sit down to write bits and you just don't feel that funny?
We usually go have a beer and it comes.
Well, you've got, there are good things about comedy services, and if you don't use them, just...
Let me give you that box number again. That's box... No.
Yeah, I do have that going, too. Let me give you... But you can use those as starters, I think, and give yourself an opportunity to start writing a bit. You'll sit down with that blank piece of paper, for an hour, but you've got to sit there till you have it. And if you have something to start with, chances are you'll end up with something anyway.
Did you ever read Stephen King? He's got a great thing in the front, because I get people all the time say, I want to write comedy. Stephen King has an introduction to one of his books. People ask him all the time, I'd like to write a book. And he said, well, what you do is you sit down and you put the paper in the typewriter and you start typing. I mean, you got to discipline yourself every day to sit down and, try to write something. And, you just cannot, I don't care who you are, even. I just saw this Jonathan Winters HBO special where they tried to wing it and it sucked. It was just terrible. You can't show up and not have prepared something.
That's why
and then expect to be funny.
That's why I keep a lot of carded bits if I walk in and I'm incredibly hungover.
Yeah.
God, I was funny last week, and we're going to hear that again, ladies and gentlemen. Bingo. Because I think everyone who does morning radio is probably a major drinker, and it is a problem. So you have to have stuff to fall back on. There's always the news. The news is always funny.
Yeah.
You open up the people section, and that asshole that does the 10 worst things. So there's always some guy in there. There's something that's hilarious.
Maybe somebody calling you up with something funny. You can work your phones like crazy.
Or go on the air and go with it. Run with it. Go on the air and say, God, I feel like hell. I cannot be funny today. Make me laugh. And then the phones go berserk.
We did a flash poll Friday about how boring we were. It was so bad. So
How'd you do?
We were in the decimal points at one point, but it really worked out because people were calling up telling us how bad we were that day, and it was fun. They were funnier than hell doing that. So I think if you use that audience you have, because if they're listening to you, they like to laugh at you or laugh with you, then probably they're clever too, and try them out.
Let's take one more question because the water pitchers are getting empty up here, and it's almost time to have lunch, but we'll do one more.
Yeah, hi, Richie Allen at Century 21, ex-jock many years ago from Dayton and other areas. Do you people with your shows set your bits at a preset time so the audience knows that at a certain time in the day or in your shift they're going to hear a bit that they can count on as a feature for quarter-hour maintenance or for...
Well, for Pat and Andy, there are some certain features that we run at certain times. It's like a clock radio set. And by the way, I love your real estate jackets. How come you're not wearing yours today?
Huh?
Century 21?
Yeah, we sold...
You're the people that sold my house. I had that two-story.
Yeah.
Did a great job.
Fix the plumbing.
We have set bits that run at certain times because we want people to listen and people to participate in them. And the best way for your phone to ring, for example, we do Pat and Andy's birthday club in the morning at the same time every morning, and we just shred people daily, and they love it. They call, whoever gets elected into our club has got to be a village idiot to begin with to put up with the crap they take on the telephone, but they love it, and we get, tons of mail, and it's a happy ha-ha time, but it's 8:45 every morning, and they can set their clocks by it. Ed the janitor comes rolling in the studios at 10 to a certain hour, just about every morning, and that's one way of doing it. The other bits, the stuff that I think that you're going to do that's a daily or a topical bit, like we take a lot of morning hotline calls. You heard the tape. We have some celebrity voices that are available to us, and they can pop off at any time, and that's what keeps people past a quarter hour. But I think the clock radio times, the bits that, at 20 after a certain hour, something's going to happen. And then the fact that also in that hour something's going to happen, but you don't know when, is two reasons to keep them listening.
I'm going to propose one final question to the panelists. And I would like you all to think about this question. And it's a very simple question, really, but think about your answer individually. As we wrap up this panel, each one of you, what would you say to the audience if you had one thing to tell them to help develop their career? What would that be? We'll start with the rhubarb.
I've listened and I've gotten a lot of insight from these other people here. We've talked nothing, about humor. Humor is a key element in a morning show, but the reason we've been able to be successful in Atlanta is because we're sensitive to our audience. If something goes wrong, if something you see something going on in your community, you talk about it. We have a black city councilman in Atlanta who is quite a demagogue, and he's trying to raise $1 million for a defense fund for black politicians because he thinks they're being picked on. And I got on the air raising all kinds of hell about it, saying, take that $1 million and feed those hungry people walking on Peachtree Street. Provide a home for those bag ladies. That money, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. And a lot of us, we think, hey, we're on the radio and we're stars and we're ashamed of our sensitivities. Bare your soul. Your audience will love you for it. You've got to make an emotional commitment to your audience. And if you don't want to do that, and if you just want to be known as that funny guy on the morning show, then get out, move out of the way, and do something for your audience. Don't just make them laugh. Give them some substance. So that's what I try to do. And I think the main thing is in here, don't worry about being cool. That'll come later. Worry about being sensitive to your audience and their needs. Give them what they want.
Dick Biondi.
One quick thing. After having worked and been fired at 24 radio stations in my career and fighting with program directors, I've heard everybody up here today say, give me the freedom. All of us know, and it's taking me some 30-some years to find out, that the bottom line in radio is how much money comes into the radio station. There's no other question, even more today than before. It's wonderful to sit and say, hey, I'm a great disc jockey, I'm a funny personality, but until that boss in the front office or my boss at Infinity Broadcasting in New York is happy with the P&L, all I can ask is that everybody remember that when your boss comes down on you, when you're trying to get something special, remember that that boss, that PD, has got a job to do too. It's taken me 30 years to find out that the boss really wants me to succeed. He really wants me to be a star. If I were to be a program director, I would want 7 stars, or how many jocks I had on my station. But I would like them to know that first we got to pay the bills, and you don't go in through the walls because they won't let you do what you want. Walk through the door, schmooze them a little, and remember, once the money's coming in, they're in a better mood, they're going to be a little easier to deal with, and if you're a jock, try to do what I did, only do it earlier. Try to realize that the bosses are there because they got a job, they get their butts chewed out, they got problems at home, and maybe they aren't as receptive to what your radical thinking is at that moment. All I can say is keep trying, but remember that bottom line, especially today, is what the P&L is.
Pat and Andy.
Well, if you want to take a shortcut, do what we did. Just take the program director in a side closet and cuff him up and work him over real good, and you got it made. And you're home free after that. I want to talk a little bit about talent. I would venture to say that each and every one of you in this audience, if you would go back and really pay attention to the people that you have on your staff, it could be your sports director, could be a jock at one of your FM sister stations, they all have a unique trait that is waiting to be developed and used. Whether it's a character voice, whether it's helping to write some kind of a funny bit, it is getting to know the people that you have on staff. Pay attention to, as I said when we originally started our thing here, pay attention to the talent that you have. Watch what they're doing in the hallway and have them carry that through and develop those bits. Implement them in your morning show. You don't necessarily have to go out and find new jocks or find jocks that are funny. I would venture to say you have some people on your staff right now. It's just a matter of utilizing these people and cultivating their talents and putting them to work for you.
Yep. Oh, okay. Dick Biondi, what was the joke that got you fired? I firmly believe, and I said it earlier and I'll say it again really quickly, meet the people you're talking to. Get out and find out what they're about. If you're introverted and you don't want to do that, I don't think you have much shot at success. You really need to know what people want to hear. You really need to make it sound like you really want to be friends with these people, and it really does work. It's worked in our case, and I don't see why it wouldn't work in any other market in the country. Know your audience and relate to them, and you've got them.
Jerry House.
I forgot the question. I really did.
Me too. It's getting serious.
It's a good airtight contract will help you a lot. You know, it's just the same old stuff you've heard all these seminars, but it's true. Be true to yourself and quit moving around so much for $50 because you think if you go to another market, you know, that extra $50 or $100 is going to, you know, most of the guys here have been in one market. I've been here for 10 years, you know, and stick to your guns. I mean, if you think you're funny, then, you know, just keep right on doing it and be true to yourself. And as Rhubarb said, be true to your audience, too. That syndication box number again is...
Gary Burbank.
I agree with everyone else. Thank you.
I think what Rhubarb said would even apply to a funny show. You got to remember, Rhubarb, one of the things that you give people is the gift of laughter, which is a very sincere gift and an important gift. I say, be funny. If they can't take a joke, fuck them.
Yeah. One quick reminder before you go. The Country Music Industry Learning What We Are session is running long next door. Please join him at this point. Thank you. Been a great audience. This has been a great panel. Let's give them a big hand.
Well, it's just, just go over there. How's it going, man? Did you work with Greg Pachani?